Hi, everybody. Welcome to the 7-Minute Takeover, where we talk about all things acquisitions. My name is Liz McRea, and today we have with us Israel Peck. He's the founder and CEO of Cratic. He's been in and out of M&A transactions for almost 15 years, and today we are chatting about strategic due diligence. So first question for you, Israel, what is strategic due diligence?
Thanks, Liz. The difference between strategic due diligence and just normal due diligence is that normal due diligence is about basically kicking the tires of the business, going around and saying like, you said you had $100,000 in the bank. Can we go to the bank? Can we see the $100,000? You said you own this location. Can we see the agreements? Can we see the documents? That's diligence. Strategic diligence is thinking about how are we going to get more leverage out of this business after we buy it. So once we've made the acquisition, what are the changes that we're going to make as a new owner to that business that's going to help us grow past, just the value of the business as it is currently? Because usually you're paying for that value in the transaction, but you want to make more value as you grow the business. So that's the idea.
And we chatted earlier that there's a strategic framework around these principles. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
There's something called the value chain model, value chain framework. And so I encourage anyone who's listening to just go Google it. You'll see a bunch of different examples, but basically it's this idea that there's these macro processes in the business that are driving the business forward. And so I think of it, the most basic one is 4 steps. It's marketing, sales, operations, and customer service. And so what's powerful about these macro steps is that each one of them has like a deliverable at the end of it, like a tangible, real deliverable. And so, for example, marketing, the result, the goal of marketing is to get leads. And that lead is like a person's name, a business name, information. We know we can contact them and we can start them in our sales process. Then the goal of the sales process is to get a contract or a transaction where they've actually agreed they're going to pay us and we're going to give them something. And then in the end of operations, there's usually a purchase order, which is like, okay, they've completed it. Now we're going to bill them for it. And the end of customer service, we have another meeting for a possible renewal. And so this 4-step process, there's a lot of different ways to cut it up. But the powerful thing is as a new business owner, you want to be thinking about, where is that next customer going to come from? Or on the customer service end of it, how much time does it take to renew these customers? Do these customers come back?
Okay, so for our purposes in an acquisition, what do you recommend folks when they're going through due diligence? What are your recommendations for them to find out this information and understand? So some companies may have this framework in place. A lot of them probably have an absence of this framework. And so as an acquirer, you're trying to figure out what's already in place and where you can add value. Do you have any tips for recommendations for due diligence for figuring out what's already in place?
Well, I would assume they don't have it in place necessarily, but the business does operate this way. So it's not like the owner's going to probably have this sitting around on a shelf. But what you can do
is bring it in for you. Here it is. Here's my value creation framework.
Well, but it is a framework that you as an outsider can use to quickly understand how the business works and to quickly come up with more ideas. You might think, I'm just going to buy this business and figure it out. I'd say that's a little dangerous. You want to have like a structure in mind of like, okay, I would say these are questions you can start by asking the current owner in the diligence process. You're going to have an opportunity in the diligence process to ask them tons of questions. And afterwards, there's always going to be questions you wished you would have asked. And so in my framework, what I would say is you want to ask them, where's the next customer going to come from? How are you getting that next customer? If I don't buy your business, where are they going to come from? You want to know how much time is the current owner spending finding that next customer? Is it a lot of their time, like 80% of their time or 20% of their time? It's a totally different business if they spend 80% of their time finding their next customer. You're like, okay, I'm going to spend a lot of time in marketing mode if I buy this business, because I'm going to have to figure out now how to accelerate the lead generation of the business. Or they might say, oh, I spend 80% of my time in customer service. And you go, oh, okay, so this is a lot of returning customers. So that means I'm going to spend a lot of time building relationships with existing customers because I want to make sure that they're going to stick around. So which one of those the current owner is spending most of their time on is going to really dictate not only how you're going to spend your time, but where you're going to find your strategic leverage in the business. And what I mean by that is you have to get really good at either one of those areas in order to continue to really grow the business.
If a business is really showing signs that that next customer generation was solely on the exiting owner and now they're leaving the business, and now you've got this kind of gaping hole of that role, what do you like? Is that a risk? It should be opportunity. How do you view this in your experience?
I mean, what they would call every risk an opportunity. For me, it's very concerning, right? Like if I know that this person has like a huge database of relationships that they're calling on, and that's how they find their next lead, they're like, oh, I'm just going to call up Joe, and like Joe always introduces me to somebody. You're going to have to figure out how to kind of systematize that. So for example, I mean, one of the things that came to mind was like, let's say you're buying a bakery. I know maybe you're not buying a bakery, but if you're buying a bakery, they might say something like, well, once a month we send out a coupon to our email list. Okay, that's not impossible. Like we could send out those coupons and people just come in because of that coupon. Like, yeah, we send out that coupon, we get a bunch of customers from that. Or we post, amazing photos of our bread and it gets people's mouth watering, and then they show up they show up and buy a loaf of bread. Okay, so either of those models is pretty, you can think of ways, I think, automatically, like how we're going to scale that. We're going to grow our email list, we're going to grow our Instagram following, and we're going to do different techniques to try to grow that and scale more so we can sell more bread. And then we can maybe buy another bakery and bolt on, because now we're getting really good at that marketing piece. But again, if it's someone who's like, oh no, I've just been doing this for 20 years, I just know everybody. Okay, well, that makes me really uncomfortable, because it's like, well, I don't know all those people. They don't all trust me. It's going to take a long time to develop that trust. And so from a business standpoint, I have to think about how am I going to do that?
Right on. Okay. So in due diligence, great advice. Look for this value chain framework, understand what's working in the business, what is potentially missing, and then plan to have the strategy in place for post-acquisition. That's what I'm hearing from you. Is that accurate? I know there's a lot missing there. There's a lot to expand on, but parting words.
That was perfect. And then afterwards, talk to me about culture. Culture is the piece of the relationships that go around these macro processes. You have to do all these steps, but how do we do them? What is that relationship interaction like? That's the piece that becomes really interesting. The important thing is the steps that run the business, you can figure them out. Every great business operator understands the steps. It's, in my business, I have 42 steps. If I complete those 42 steps, everything works. So the same will happen in your business that you're looking at. Figure out what those steps are. The faster you figure it out, the more fun and the more successful the business is going to be.
Wonderful. Well, I like that you threw the word fun in there, because it should also be fun. As much as this is business and operations, it should be fun too. So thank you for joining us today, Israel. Great tips and advice. And thanks everybody. If you need to reach out to Israel, we'll put his contact information in the show notes, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Liz.
Bye everybody.